So far, you've learned about lots of different human trafficking survivors and different types of trafficking that can exist. I wanted to talk to you about how to recognize people that could be in this issue so that if you see something in your community, like a friend, or if you see something that makes you question what's going on, you could act. There is no cookie-cutter image of a human trafficking victim. You may see a human trafficking victim each week, whether it's in a nail salon, on the highway, somewhere in your neighborhood, somewhere around town. Perhaps you could see them in a restaurant. Well, to be able to recognize them, I wanted to let you know that there are many different characteristics. In some cases, victims of human trafficking can be foreign and they can be brought to the U.S. Here are some signs that could indicate someone that might be a foreign victim of trafficking. If they're not in control of their ID or their passport, or if they're not in control of their money, those are very good signs that someone could be being dominated by someone else. Also, if they have a lot of difficulty understanding and communicating in English. Finally, some foreign victims will have a debt that they think they owe to an employer, and if they're unwilling to talk about their employer or the debt they owe, that could be a very good indicator. Trafficking victims are probably being moved around, and so they are probably not familiar with the area. As we saw with Teresa Flores, she was being trafficked in her own home, so this isn't always the case. However, a lot of times they will be very unfamiliar with their surroundings. If someone seems very timid, submissive, or fearful, this could be a sign of a trafficking victim. Another sign of a human trafficking victim would be signs of physical abuse or malnourishment, because victims typically do not get any sort of health care. One very good indicator that an American could be a victim of human trafficking could be difficulty in school, family conflicts, or low self-esteem.
Be educated, don't be blind to it, don't think that it doesn't happen here, it happens every day. And if you think something's wrong, question it. Question it, because if you're wrong on something being wrong, then big deal. They'll either get over it or they won't. But the chances are that you could save a life, and just be educated.
If you have a friend or you see someone that's really changed temperaments, maybe they've gotten very depressed or very aggressive, or maybe they've gotten very withdrawn and sad, any sort of change is a very good indicator. Teresa Flores seemed like she was having mood swings and she seemed very rebellious. So if you notice a friend that seems to have shifted somehow, that's a good indicator. Another good indicator is if they've gotten aggressive or seem to need survival skills. If you remember Kiara, she was a runaway. And so runaways or maybe chronically couch surfing are also very good indicators that someone may be a trafficking victim. Another very good indicator that someone could be a victim of trafficking is if they have an older boyfriend, or if they are getting gifts of jewelry or clothing, or they seem to be getting pampered. However, you saw in Shauna's case, the trafficker was a girl and she was the same age as Shauna. So having an older boy is not always the case. Sometimes it can be a girl and it can just be a friend, or it can be someone the same age as you. So noticing a suspicious relationship is good. Another very good indicator is if someone you know is self-medicating with drugs or alcohol. If you go through a very traumatic experience, sometimes the pain is so much that you use drugs or alcohol to get away from it. Another physical thing that you can look for are tattoos. They can be large or small. Traffickers will sometimes brand their victims. Of course, this is not always the case, but it can be an indicator. Also, if you see any sort of cutting, burning, or other kind of bizarre mannerisms or physical things that look out of place, they probably are, and you should definitely report it. Finally, if you notice any of your friends exhibiting any sort of inappropriate behavior like clothing, language, or any other sort of manner, and it seems different than what they usually do, that can be a good indicator. So just think of your friends, your siblings, cousins, shifting somehow. If you remember Teresa Flores, she was purposely lying to her friends and her family and everyone about where she was going. She was manipulating everyone around her so that her secret wouldn't be exposed. All minors, everyone under 18 in the sex industry, whether it's pornography, forced prostitution, or some other form of exploitation, are victims. Because they're victims, there are many laws that protect them and many resources for them. There are also many shelters and helplines. If you see something suspicious or have any questions, you can talk to your teacher, or you can call the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-3737-888. You can also text them if you choose. So in closing, if you see something, please say something.